All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis est. The Truth About Fat, a guide to health, society, and body positivity. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. First then, the user wants a viral Substack title and subtitle. Title under 8 words. Subtitle under 24 words, separated by exactly 1 colon, no other colon. Title sells trigger scene, demon roster, virtue, remedy, detonating question. The partial answer has some brainstorming but hasn't finalized.
The diploma of Wynona's victimhood is 5 words but doesn't capture the demon roster or virtue. Better, the sophistry of lived experience is 5 words but not selling virtue. Perhaps Wynona's war on standards 4 words.
But need to sell trigger scene, demon roster, virtue, detonating question. Subtitle can mention those. Title minus the DEI panel that killed merit is 6 words.
Subtitle: Wynona hires a diploma, rejects a runner. The sophistry demon falls when we ask why lived experience needs credentials. That's 18 words. But need to include virtue remedy. Restore the measuring stick could be part of subtitle. Better title: Wynona's measuring stick 3 words. Subtitle minus a DEI panel rejects BMI, hires a diploma, and crowns the sophistry demon.
The detonating question: if lived experience is truth, why a diploma? That's 22 words, but virtue remedy missing. Title minus the meritocracy of mood is 4 words.
Subtitle: How Wynona hired a diploma to kill competence, let the sophistry demon rule, and forgot the measuring stick. Ask why credentials for lived experience. That's 22 words.
That captures trigger scene, demon, sophistry. I watched it happen in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor. Dr.
Wynona, Senior Vice President of Inclusion, surgically sculpted, morally unshakable, fired a man who runs marathons because his body is a site of oppression?
Mark, 45, logistics manager, BMI of 28, 20 years of competence, stacked behind him like freight pallets in a warehouse he'll never manage again. His metabolic profile offended the new wellness and equity metric. Then she turned around and hired Chloe, 24, BMI of 32 degree, from a diploma mill whose name sounds like a subdivision, because Chloe's lived experience of systemic weight bias grants her a unique epistemic advantage in leadership.
Wynona stood there in her Lululemon armor, gesturing at a body she'd spent $40,000 renovating, and chanted, "Your biology is not destiny, your privilege is." Nobody laughed. Nobody could.
The room was already beheaded by the slogan cascade. Listen and learn, believe lived experience. Your tone is harmful. This conversation is unsafe. Do better. Standards are violence, each phrase a bar in a cage that locks from the outside. And here is the thing that almost nobody in that room could see, because the entire performance is designed to make you feel cruel for looking. It feels like compassion. It feels like justice. Chloe is a real person with a real story. Mark is a real man who will go home and sit in his truck for 20 minutes before telling his wife. The ideology drinks that emotional reality like fuel. It wraps itself in the image of the wounded and dares you to speak. That is its shield. You're not arguing against a policy, you're arguing against a woman's pain, a minority's dignity, a child's future. Or so the framing insists, and this is precisely why it wins. It relocates the argument from the arena of evidence to the arena of emotion, where whoever suffers most loudly carries the highest authority.
Winona does not need to be right. She needs to be moved, and she needs you to see her being moved. But if you hold still, if you refuse to flinch, refuse to apologize for noticing reality, a crack opens.
The panel claims to reject objective biological standards as arbitrary social constructs, yet selects its hire using the most subjective, aristocratic, exclusionary social constructs ever invented, Ivy League pedigree, cultural fit, and the ineffable glow of resilience as perceived by people who already agreed with each other before the meeting began. The sophistry demon does not abolish hierarchy. It steals hierarchy, kills the rightful king, and wears his crown while insisting no king exists. It says standards are violence and then enforces standards so stringent they make Victorian etiquette look like a mosh pit. Only now the standards measure your ideology, not your competence. The return to logos begins the moment you ask one question, calmly, without apology. If lived experience is the only truth, why do you need a diploma to validate it? Watch the room change.
Watch the demon lose its namelessness. That is where this essay begins. Dr. Winona's demonstration. Thank you. Please take your seats.
I want to begin by acknowledging the courage it took for everyone in this room to remain present during what I know has been a difficult transition. Difficult but necessary. I want you to know that I see you. I see your discomfort, and I want to affirm that discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is growth asking permission to enter. Some of you are wondering about Mark. I know this. I see it in your faces, the tightness around the eyes, the careful way you arrange your expressions, so as not to appear to question what has happened. Let me speak to that silence, because silence in moments of transformation is never neutral. Silence is a posture, and I want to gently invite you to examine whose interests your silence serves. Mark was not fired. I want to be precise about language because precision is a form of care. Mark was released from a framework. For 15 years, Mark occupied a role inside a system that measured his body against a standard. He did not design, and that was never designed to include everyone. He performed well by that standard. I do not deny this. What I deny, what this institution must now have the moral clarity to deny, is the standard itself. Mark runs marathons. Mark has a BMI of 28. By the outdated metabolic metrics we inherited, metrics developed in the 1830s by a Belgian statistician, let us remember a man whose interest was in describing the average Belgian male, not in legislating the moral worth of human bodies across centuries and continents. Mark is healthy, but health is not a number. Health is a relationship between a body and the world that body inhabits. And I would ask you, healthy for whom? Healthy according to whom? Healthy in service of what? When Mark stands in a room, his body communicates something. It communicates discipline, yes, but discipline toward what? Towards a standard of physical optimization that was codified by and for people who looked like Mark, who valued what Mark values, who built the world to reward Mark's particular constellation of effort and genetics and access, and then called the result merit. Mark's fitness is not neutral. Mark's fitness is a performance. It is a performance of an ideal that silently excludes everybody that cannot or will not conform to its geometry. This is what we mean when we say that standards are not innocent. A standard is a story about what counts as good, and for too long the authors of that story have been a very narrow slice of humanity. Now, Chloe. Some of you, and I am naming this with compassion, not accusation, some of you are thinking that Chloe was hired because of her body. I want to reframe that, because the frame itself is the inheritance of the system we are dismantling. Chloe was hired because of what her body knows. Chloe carries what scholars in embodied epistemology call situated knowledge. Chloe has lived inside a body that the world has read as too much. Too slow at the marathon, too large for the airplane seat, too visible in the doctor's office where her concerns were dismissed and her pain was attributed to her size before a single test was ordered. Chloe has been misread by every institution she has encountered, and she has survived that misreading with her intelligence intact, her capacity for leadership undiminished. And this is critical, her epistemic humility deepened by the experience of knowing things that the people in power refuse to see. That is leadership. That is the leadership this company needs. We did not hire Chloe despite her lack of traditional credentials. We hired her because of what her lack of traditional credentials reveals, that the credentialing system itself is a mechanism of exclusion. When we say diploma mill, what are we actually saying? We are saying that the institution that granted Chloe's degree does not meet our standard of legitimacy. But whose standard? Standardized by whom? Accredited by which bodies? Governed by which assumptions about what knowledge is and where it lives? Chloe's degree is valid because Chloe's experience is valid. And Chloe's experience is valid because it is hers, which is to say, it is particular, embodied, and irreducible to the abstractions that Marx's logistics models prefer. I want to say something about logistics, actually, because I think it illustrates the deeper point. Logistics is the science of moving objects through space efficiently. Efficiency. I want you to sit with that word. Efficiency for whom? Efficient toward what end? An efficient system that moves goods across continents while the bodies operating that system are collapsing under the weight of invisible standards. Is that efficiency? Or is that extraction wearing a lab coat? Chloe does not need to optimize a supply chain. Chloe needs to help us reimagine what a supply chain is for. And she cannot do that if we handcuff her to metrics developed by men who believed that the purpose of a human body was to serve the machine. I want to address the slogan some of you have whispered in the hallways. Not to me, of course, never to me, but to each other, in the reliable privacy of your resentment, that this is unfair to Mark. Unfair. Let us examine that word. Unfair. Unfair assumes a level playing field that was disrupted. But there was never a level playing field. There was a field designed by Marx's ancestors, and I use that word culturally, not genealogically, though the genealogy is not irrelevant. A field calibrated to reward Marx's body type, Marx's communication style, Marx's relationship to authority, Marx's interpretation of what constitutes a good day's work. Marx did not build that field. I know that. Marx is not personally responsible for the field. But Marx benefited from the field for 15 years, and the cost of that benefit was borne silently, invisibly, structurally by everybody that was told it did not belong on the field. So when I hear unfair to Marx, what I actually hear is the field is finally shifting, and the people who were comfortable on the old field are experiencing the shift as loss. And I understand that experience. I have compassion for that experience, but compassion does not mean maintaining a field that maims people so that the comfortable can remain comfortable. Compassion means walking with people through the discomfort of transformation, and that is what I am doing right now. That is what this meeting is. This is care. I need you to hear that. What looks like disruption is care. What looks like chaos is actually the most rigorous form of love, because love refuses to leave the old structure standing when the old structure is the wound. Some of you, the ones who are honest with yourselves, and I invite all of you toward that honesty, some of you are thinking, but she's not qualified. She doesn't know logistics. She's never managed a warehouse. She's never optimized a route. She doesn't know what a bill of lading is, and I hear you. But I want to ask you a question, a real question. One that I think, if you sit with it honestly, will change the architecture of your thinking. Who decided that knowing those things is what qualifies a person to lead? Leadership is not technical mastery. Leadership is the capacity to hold space for complexity, to center voices that have been decentered, to make decisions that account for the full spectrum of human experience, not just the spectrum visible from the corner office. Marx knows bills of lading. Chloe knows what it feels like to be loaded onto a scale and found wanting. And I would suggest to you, with respect, with care, but with absolute moral clarity, that Chloe's knowledge is more relevant to the future of this company than Marx, because the future of this company is not in moving boxes more efficiently. The future of this company is in belonging, and belonging cannot be optimized. Belonging must be embodied. Now, I want to speak directly to the men in this room. I see you. I see the way your jaws tighten when I use the word patriarchy. I see the way your eyes flicker when I say structural. I know that some of you feel that you are being asked to apologize for existing. You are not. I want to be very clear about this. You are not being asked to apologize. You are being asked to become aware. And I know that awareness can feel like accusation, especially to bodies that have never had to be aware of themselves as bodies. Bodies that have had the luxury of experiencing themselves as default, as neutral, as simply the way things are. But I need you to understand something. The world you experienced as natural was not natural. It was constructed. And the construction served some people very well and crushed others so thoroughly that they did not even have the vocabulary to describe the crushing. That is what we are repairing. And the repair requires that some of you step aside, not because you are bad, not because you failed, but because the space you occupy was never solely yours. It was assigned to you by a system that confused proximity to power with fitness for power. Mark is not a bad man. I want to say this clearly because I know how easily these conversations are distorted. Mark is a man who inherited a set of assumptions about what makes a person valuable, and he lived inside those assumptions faithfully, and the assumptions are wrong. And when the assumptions are wrong, the life built on them, however sincerely built, must be gently, firmly, lovingly dismantled. That is what happened today. I want to close with something that I hope will stay with you longer than the discomfort of this moment. A society is known by what it measures. If we measure BMI, we are saying your worth is your metabolic efficiency. If we measure credentials, we are saying your worth is your proximity to institutions that have historically excluded you. If we measure output, we are saying your worth is what you produce for a machine that does not love you. But if we measure embodied wisdom, if we measure the courage to live inside a body that the world has tried to shrink, to shame, to correct, and to refuse that correction with dignity intact, then we are saying something new. We are saying your worth is your witness. Your worth is what you have survived and what that survival has taught you about the systems that need to change. That is the company I am building. That is the future I am asking you to help me build. And if you cannot help me build it, I understand, but I will not pretend that your reluctance is principle. Your reluctance is grief. And grief, while valid, is not a strategy. Grief is a weather pattern. You stand in it, you feel it, and then you move through it, or you stand in the rain and call yourself a martyr, while the rest of us are inside, building something that finally has room for everyone. Thank you. My door is open, and by open, I mean open to dialogue, open to growth, open to the difficult and sacred work of unlearning. It is not open to debate. There is nothing to debate. There is only the choice to grow or the choice to be grown around. I trust you will make the right choice. What the scene reveals, the moment the mask slipped. Picture the glass-walled conference room. Dr.
Winona stands before the survivors. Mark's empty chair still holds the warmth of 15 years of competent service, a marathon runner with a BMI of 28 who kept supply chains moving through 3 recessions.
He has been released from a framework, which is the language a priest uses when she means sacrificed. The mask slips in the next breath. The panel that just declared BMI an ableist social construct, a metric developed by a Belgian statistician in the 1830s, therefore invalid, turns around and hires Chloe, age 24, BMI of 32, credential from an institution that would not survive a 10-minute audit. Why? Because Chloe possesses an Ivy League MBA, because Chloe has cultural fit, because Chloe demonstrates resilience. Wait. The panel just told you that standards developed by dead European men are instruments of oppression. Then it used a credential from an institution built by dead European men, older, wealthier, more exclusionary than any actuarial table, as its decisive evidence. The panel did not abolish the measuring stick. It grabbed the stick, broke it over Mark's back, handed a shorter piece to Chloe, and called the ceremony justice. That slippage, the half second where the rhetoric contradicts the action, is where the light gets in. Everything that follows is cosmetic. The demons in the room, 5 spirits animated that conference room. They have no bodies, but they have fingerprints. The first and loudest is the spirit that substitutes verbal agility for truth. the voice that says health is a relationship between a body and the world. When it means I refuse to define health so that my preferred candidate always qualifies, this spirit is dazzling in performance. It can make words mean their opposites before lunch. Its gift, genuine nuance, real precision, has been captured and weaponized into a fog machine. What began as verbal cleverness, the kind that could parse a difficult text or illuminate a subtle distinction, has curdled into a party trick. Precision between pedantry and vagueness. The disciplined craft of saying exactly what you mean is the virtue this spirit parodies. The remedy is the oldest tool in the Western inheritance. Define your terms before you use them, demand the definition. Watch the spirit writhe. The second spirit deals in counterfeit moral currency. It takes suffering, real suffering, suffering that deserves honor and attention, and converts it into a unit of exchange. The more pain you can claim, the more authority you purchase. Chloe's body is not a body. It is a debit card in the economy of grievance. This spirit's corruption is subtle because it begins with something true. Injustice exists and the injured deserve a hearing. But hearing is not elevation, and suffering confers moral weight only when it produces humility, wisdom, and repaired character, not when it becomes a ticket to bypass competence. Honest suffering, born with courage between servile self-pity and arrogant entitlement, can forge real nobility. The remedy is the question nobody asks at these rituals. Who pays the cost of this exception? Mark pays. His colleagues pay, the customers who depend on the supply chain pay. Chloe pays too, though she will not know it until the day she is asked to do the job she was hired to perform and discovers that lived experience cannot route a shipment through a hurricane.
The third spirit throws its own shadow on the wall and calls it another person's face. Winona accuses Mark of performative masculinity, but who is performing?
Mark moved boxes, solved problems, ran marathons, and went home.
Winona stands before a glass-walled room and delivers a 17-minute monologue about her own moral authority while displaying a surgically enhanced body she calls just another social construct. The accusation is the confession. What Winona fears, her own irrelevance, her own reliance on the very standards she denounces, she projects onto Mark's quiet competence. Self-recognition is the buried treasure here.
A person who could own their bias, name their preference, and confess their self-interest would possess a terrible integrity. Instead, we get theater. The remedy is shadow integration, the rare and painful act of saying, I chose Chloe because she serves my interests and Mark did not. The fourth spirit is the public saint, vainglory in its Sunday best.
Winona's speech is not addressed to the room, it is addressed to the mirror.
Every sentence is calibrated to produce an image, the brave leader, the compassionate visionary, the woman who speaks truth to power while holding all of it. Noble reputation is this spirit's distorted gold, the desire to be genuinely worthy of honor, turned inside out into the desire to be seen as worthy regardless of worth.
Truthfulness between vanity and false humility is the mean. The remedy is the discipline Winona will never submit to. Do good without applause. Make the hire without the sermon. Run the meeting without the liturgy. If the virtue were real, it would not require a stage. The fifth spirit is the fog itself, the dissolution of names, distinctions, measures, and meaning. Health becomes whatever Winona says it is.
Competence becomes whatever Chloe's body knows. Logistics, a word with a precise genealogy reaching back to the Greek logos, and the military science of supplying armies becomes a metaphor for reimagining what a supply chain is for, which means whatever sounds noble enough to silence the accountant. Creative openness lives here as a buried gift, the capacity to see new possibilities, to revise categories when the evidence demands it. But openness without discipline is not creativity. It is chaos wearing a beret. The remedy is grammar, the patient, unglamorous labor of restoring distinctions. Health is not self-esteem. A supply chain is not a poem. A diploma mill is not a university. Name the thing, the fog recedes. Behind all five, directing the choir, sits the chief vice, the refusal to receive reality as a gift. This is the oldest rebellion in the canon, not the defiance of a particular rule, but the rejection of givenness itself. The body has a nature. Health has a form. Excellence has a shape. Sex is real. Calories count. Gravity does not negotiate. A civilization that cannot say this is better than that about health, beauty, competence, and virtue has not achieved enlightenment. It has lost the faculty of sight. The ideological posture dresses this blindness in priestly robes and calls it humility. But calling yourself humble while claiming the authority to rewrite biology, language, and logic in a single afternoon is not humility. It is pride with a press kit. How the trick works. The trick depends on 6 slogans deployed in sequence like a combination lock. Each one converts a request for evidence into a moral failure on the part of the questioner. Listen and learn means submit. Do not answer back. The priest speaks, the congregation absorbs. Believe lived experience means abandon the faculty of judgment. The claim cannot be tested. To test it is to reoppress. Your tone is harmful means the manner of your speech invalidates its content. A true syllogism delivered in the wrong tone becomes false. This conversation is unsafe means reality is now a threat. Retreat to the designated zone of approved feeling. Do better means confess. Perform penance. The standard you have violated will never be specified, because specifying it would create a measure the priest herself could fail. Standards or violence means the measuring stick is a weapon. Abolish measurement. Abolish the capacity to notice that Chloe cannot do the job, and Mark can. Each slogan is a spell designed to end thought, not begin it. The Socratic method, asking what a thing is, becomes heresy. This is not dialogue. It is liturgy, a denunciation ritual where the accused may not cross-examine the priest, may not see the evidence, may not name the cost, may not appeal to the standard. Because the standard has been declared violent and the questioner has been declared harmful, the ritual always follows the same pattern. First, the accusation. Mark's competence is recast as performative masculinity. His fitness is not health, it is dominance. Second, the sacred victim. Chloe's lack of qualification is recast as radical liberation. Her incompetence is not failure, it is resistance.
Third, the priestly gesture. Winona positions herself as the bridge, the interpreter, the gatekeeper, the one who names reality. Fourth, the chant. Repetition replaces reasoning. The slogan is the seal.
Fifth, the ban. No one may question the outcome without being named as the problem. Notice what the ritual conceals.
Winona claims to dismantle inherited systems, yet she sits atop one, a corporate hierarchy with a title, a salary, a glass-walled office.
And the power to fire a man who built value for 15 years while hiring a woman who has built nothing. She claims to reject European standards, yet her entire intellectual vocabulary, embodied epistemology, situated knowledge, systemic weight bias, descends from European philosophical traditions, specifically the Frankfurt School, French post-structuralism, and American academic feminism, all of which emerged from universities older and more exclusionary than any actuarial table. She claims that Mark's body communicates oppression, while spending thousands to sculpt her own body into a form that communicates status, then calling that form just another social construct, as though the surgeon's bill were a philosophical argument. The rainbow, the oldest covenant symbol in the Western inheritance, the sign given after judgment and mercy, the promise that order would hold and chaos would not win, has been captured and inverted. A covenant is a two-way bond, mercy paired with restraint, love paired with duty, freedom paired with responsibility. The ideological inversion strips the covenant of its grammar and leaves only the colors, appetite without order, inclusion without reciprocity, celebration without the discipline that makes celebration possible. This is not hatred toward persons, it is theological diagnosis. The rainbow without the covenant is aesthetics without ethics. It is the sign severed from the thing signified. What virtue does instead? Wisdom knows the difference between dignity, which every person possesses by nature, and competence, which must be earned, demonstrated, measured, and defended. Dignity does not entitle anyone to a job they cannot perform. Competence does not strip anyone of their dignity. Confusing the two, treating a hiring decision as a referendum on human worth, is the emotional engine of the entire fraud. Prudence judges by evidence, not emotion. It looks at the work, not the identity. It asks, can this person route the shipment? Can this person manage the warehouse? Can this person survive the quarterly review without citing a theory? Prudence does not deny that bias exists. It denies that bias is the only thing that exists. Justice gives each person their due based on capacity, not grievance. It does not lower the measure to flatter the unprepared. It does not raise the barrier to punish the excellent. It protects the weak by training them, not by pretending they are already strong. Compassion without correction is disguised contempt. Temperance exercises restraint in defining reality. It does not let appetite or resentment rewrite the world. It says, I may want Chloe to succeed. I may feel deeply for Chloe's suffering, but my feelings are data, not law. My preferences are preferences, not propositions. A civilization that allows mood to override measure has not become compassionate. It has become incompetent with a clear conscience. Fortitude bears the burden of truth. It says what is real even when it costs. It refuses to participate in the lie that Mark's competence is oppression, that Chloe's incompetence is liberation, that the measuring stick is a weapon, and that the person who notices decline is the cause of it. Fortitude is clean anger, the Aristotelian mean between servile sulking and uncontrolled rage. It does not whine, it does not explode, it stands. The cross-examination. What is the definition of merit in this context?
Is merit a biological fact or a social construct? If it is a social construct, who constructed it? And why is Winona's reconstruction more valid than Marx?
Does Chloe's degree from a diploma mill prove her competence in logistics? Does Mark's BMI prove his incompetence in logistics? If you reject objective standards, on what basis do you hire Chloe? Is cultural fit a measurable skill or a subjective preference? If it is a preference, why is it elevated to a moral imperative? Who pays the cost when an incompetent person is hired for identity reasons? Is it just to burden the competent with the costs of the incompetent? Are you protecting Chloe, or are you protecting your own status? If you were Mark, would you accept this reasoning?
Does lived experience override empirical data? If yes, why does Winona cite scholars, credentials, and institutional authority to support her position? If lived experience is supreme, what validates Winona's experience over Mark's? He has lived in his body for 45 years. Does his embodied knowledge not count? Or does only the right kind of body produce the right kind of truth? If all standards are arbitrary, then Winona's judgment is also arbitrary, and she has no grounds to claim moral superiority over anyone.
If some standards are not arbitrary, if, say, the ability to manage a supply chain through a hurricane is a real and measurable good, then the panel has not abolished standards. It has selected the standards that serve its tribe and denied the mechanism it used. Would a farmer accept this after seeing the bill? Would a grandmother believe it? After watching her grandson come home fired for running marathons while a credentialless hire takes his desk? Would a soldier accept it after watching the supply chain fail on deployment? Would a shopkeeper accept it after the deliveries stop arriving on time? Ordinary experience. The wisdom of people who move freight, fix roofs, deliver babies, and pay payroll rejects this performance on contact. What happens at scale? If every company fires its competent managers and hires its uncredentialed favorites, how long before the supply chains collapse? How long before the bridges fail? How long before the hospitals misdiagnose because the radiologist was hired for embodied wisdom instead of the ability to read a scan? The panel never asks this question because the answer is a tombstone. The symbolic remedy. The remedy is not another slogan. It is not a counter-ritual. It is the restoration of the measuring stick, the patient, unglamorous, irreplaceable instrument that tells the young where to climb, tells the weak what to train, tells the institution what to protect, and tells the soul what is worth becoming. A standard does not exclude. It invites, it is a ladder, and resentment calls it a wall. Lowering the measure does not lift the person. It defrauds them of the knowledge that they have not yet arrived. A civilization that cannot say better and worse about health, beauty, competence, and character has not achieved a higher morality. It has lost the capacity to mean anything at all. The symbolic act of restoration is what we might call the silence of the expert, allowing the data to speak without the noise of identity performance. Let the work answer, let the fruit testify. Let the marathon time, the delivery record, the quarterly audit, and the supply chain uptime determine fitness for the role, not the mood of the priest, not the volume of the chant, not the aesthetic of the campaign. Excellence is not cruelty. Excellence is love with a spine, the love that says you can do better, the love that refuses to flatter because flattery is sabotage wearing a hug. The war on standards is the war on reality's right to answer back. The answer is already in. It has always been in. It was in the empty chair where Marx sat.
It was in the supply chain that ran for 15 years without a sermon. It was in the measuring stick Winona broke and could not replace. The question that ends the ritual: if lived experience is the only truth, why do you need a diploma to validate it? Winona required Chloe to produce a credential from any institution, however hollow, before Chloe's experience could count.
The panel required Ivy League pedigree, cultural fit, and perceived resilience, all standards, all judgments, all measures before extending the offer. The entire ritual depends on the standards it claims to abolish. There is nothing left to debate. There is only the choice to restore the ladder or to stand in the rubble and call it liberation. The measuring stick has already answered. Reality always does. One rule to carry. Here is your ending. When you face an inversion compassion weaponized, merit renamed violence, beauty called oppression, do not meet hysteria with hysteria. Name the vice precisely. Define every term and demand the falsifier. Then ask who pays, who decides, and what fruit this bears in 20 years. Slogans collapse under cross-examination because they are spells, not arguments. Your discipline is the exorcism. The rule: never answer a slogan with a feeling. Answer it with a definition, a cost ledger, and one detonating question they cannot survive. That is counsel worth keeping. Sponsored book. The Truth About Fat, A Guide to Health, Society, and Body Positivity. You're holding a book that will piss off the right people. Let's get that out of the way first. If you're the type who thinks health at every size is anything but a euphemism for denial, or that masculinity is a mental illness to be medicated by soy lattes and sensitivity training, close this cover now. Go binge Netflix, knit a scarf, do whatever lets you keep lying to yourself. This isn't for you. For the rest, men who still value truth over platitudes, I wrote this because I watched a generation trade discipline for delusion. I've seen friends die before 50, their bodies wrecked by obesity they were told to love. I've sat in doctors' offices as they whispered statistics about heart disease and diabetes, too afraid of stigma to say it loud. Worse, I've watched schools teach boys that wanting strength, physical or moral, is toxic. Then wonder why they're adrift in a world that mocks their passivity. This book connects dots others fear to acknowledge. You'll see how body positivity isn't kindness. It's a cult that sacrifices health at the altar of political correctness. You'll learn why activists pushing fat acceptance often die decades younger than average, their mantras silenced by the very diseases they deny. We'll dissect how cultural Marxists hijacked legitimate struggles, like ending genuine discrimination, to instead normalize dysfunction, from glorifying obesity to pathologizing masculinity. Chapters like mortality rates don't care about your feelings and woke medicine kills aren't hyperbole. They're battle reports from the front lines of a society rotting from within. You'll get biology, not buzzwords. Data showing sperm counts crashing, obesity rates exploding, and men increasingly treated as disposable beasts of burden in a gynocentric welfare state. This is for men who'd rather build legacies than hashtags. Men who know toxic masculinity is a trap, damned if you lead, damned if you don't. Men tired of being told to fund, protect, and obey a system that despises them. If that's you, read on. If not, leave. The kittens will thank you. The Truth About Fat, A Guide to Health, Society, and Body Positivity. Written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now, links in description.